everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So today I am bringing you a beginner's guide to reading Shakespeare for fun. This is not academic in any way. These are just my tips that I have used personally where I read Shakespeare and I have fun doing it, and I feel like it's kind of like an oxymoron. I feel like not very many people consider Shakespeare fun reading, and what I want to do is kind of open your eyes to how Shakespeare can be really fun, and this is mainly for beginners. I am a beginner still, so I feel like I kept putting this video off thinking, well, I haven't read any histories yet, and I haven't because they scare me. I have read comedies, I've read tragedies, but I have not read any histories, and I was thinking, well, maybe I should read histories before I film like a guide to Shakespeare video, but then I thought, I'm still a beginner, why don't I give my tips as a beginner myself for fellow beginners to Shakespeare? So that is what this is today. Mainly, I just want to give you guys resources that you can use and kind of my own techniques where I have read Shakespeare and really enjoyed myself. He is one of my favorite authors. He is right here, and he's also right here. This is a wind-up Shakespeare that I got at the Metropolitan Opera House when I went to see a ballet of Jane Eyre, and he is just the cutest thing ever. There we go. And then I also have my Shakespeare insults right here, which another great thing about after reading Shakespeare is you can get all of the Shakespeare memes on Instagram and Pinterest, and you can get little Shakespeare tchotchkes like this little guy, and a Shakespeare, that's like a card, but I always have it over there. Basically, you can kind of, what I love about Shakespeare is even though it's so many hundreds of years old, it's still used today, even his insults like this. So today's insult, today is July 8th, it's Wednesday, and the insult is from King Lear, and it says, "I have seen better faces in my time than stands alone on any shoulder that I see before me at this instant," saying that this guy is like really ugly, basically. And what I love is, instead of just saying, oh yeah, this guy's really ugly, or, you know, go away, he puts it in such a funny Old English way where it makes it even more effective. And so what I love about Shakespeare is the more you read, the more fun you have while reading. So I feel like the hardest part is the first step, getting into Shakespeare and trying to make it fun. So today I was talking about my personal 5 tips, what I use and what I think is really helpful when you are beginning to read Shakespeare for fun, or just trying to get used to Shakespeare as an author, maybe make him more part of your reading. So the first thing I have to ask you is, why are you reading Shakespeare? There are mainly, I guess, 3 steps into reading Shakespeare, I guess 3 levels. The first level is basically just to get an overall understanding of the story and to not really go into too much depth, which is fine. That's what I did when I was beginning to read Shakespeare. I kind of just wanted to understand what exactly he was talking about, what story he was trying to tell. And then the second level of reading Shakespeare is to not only understand the story that he's trying to tell, but to also kind of take note of those minor literary elements and those minor details, and to get a middle ground of not analyzing it very critically, but also not just reading it for the story. And then the third step to reading Shakespeare is to not only read it to understand the story and the minor elements, but to also delve deep into all of the details and the innuendos and the different literary elements and techniques that he uses, and all of the nitty-gritty stuff that Shakespeare does so beautifully. So I would say start at the very basic, just trying to understand the story, and then work your way up. Personally, for me, I am now finally just starting to get up to that 3rd level where I'm really looking into the nitty-gritty of each play. So tip number 1 has to do with pre-reading. So this is completely optional, you don't have to do this, but basically what I started doing and I found really helpful is, even before I pick up whatever play I am reading, I do some background information. I try to go online and look up different summaries of the plays if the edition that I have doesn't have a summary. Or what I really love reading is Tales from Shakespeare by Charles and Mary Lamb. This is actually a children's book, and this is many, many years old. This edition is newer, and I'll link everything that I mentioned down below, but this edition is basically Charles and Mary Lamb turned the Shakespeare plays into children's short stories. And what I love is that this is kind of like the first step that I was talking about before, just understanding the basic story. It doesn't have every single play, but it has the main plays, and I think that this is a great resource. So basically, these are just the plays turned into more comprehensive short stories. So it reads more like a short story instead of a complicated play. And what I like to do is I like to read the short story even before I read the play, just so that I understand the story itself, and then I can go into the play kind of not only being able to know what's going on and understand the story, but to look for that next step of looking for the minor details and the nitty-gritty techniques and elements that Shakespeare uses. This edition also has really beautiful illustrations with the chapter headings, and so this one is for Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, and we just have owls, and they just have these really beautiful kind of like old-fashioned style illustrations. They almost look like woodcuts or different ink prints, and I just love this edition so much because it's a great way to get that summary so that you can go into the play kind of knowing what to expect. You will get spoilers, obviously, because it tells you the story in full, but I think with Shakespeare, it's kind of good to get that understanding before you read the play. My next tip can be implemented before, during, and after reading the Shakespeare plays themselves, is watching a film or movie adaptation. So you can do this before, kind of like the same thing with the Charles and Mary Lamb short stories, is to just get that basic understanding even before you go in to read. There are amazing stage adaptations that are on YouTube. They are being shown for free, especially now with everything going on, where the theaters are kind of in these financial strains, so they are having these fundraisers on YouTube where you can donate as you watch the plays. I just watched a beautiful rendition of A Midsummer Night's Dream that the Bridge Theatre in London did, and so I will link the YouTube channels down below where you can go and watch these beautiful stage adaptations. And also you could see if your library has any movies available, or online you could get them for free through Amazon or Netflix or whatever streaming you have. They have so many movie adaptations of Shakespeare plays, and I will talk a little bit more about my favorites and the ones that I recommend later on in this video. But again, this can be implemented before you even start reading, just so that you get that understanding of the story itself. And also, what I always tell people and myself about reading Shakespeare is that these plays weren't meant to be read. They were meant to be seen, and they were meant as entertainment, and they were meant to be enjoyable and not something to be studied and not something to be scared of. They were something to just enjoy, like Hamilton. I just watched Hamilton on Disney Plus, and so that makes Lin-Manuel Miranda William Shakespeare, but then again, I can kind of see that comparison. I think it's quite valid because he is just a genius, and so was William Shakespeare. And what I loved about Hamilton was it was this modernized history lesson, and what's great is that you are learning about the history of Alexander Hamilton. See, now I'm going on a tangent, but I'm just so passionate about Hamilton now that I just want to talk about it. But basically, it's kind of like Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing what William Shakespeare was doing. He was telling these histories. I haven't read any of the histories yet, but he was telling the history of Alexander Hamilton and the founding fathers of America, and he modernized it and made it into a musical, into rap, into these beautiful ballads, and with beautiful dance choreography and everything. And that's more of a modernized version of what William Shakespeare was doing. The same thing. He was bringing these historic events and these different stories to life for audiences to enjoy and to learn from. He did them to tell a story, he did them for entertainment, he also did them for money because that was his job. But again, if you think about that as this is an author that just wanted to entertain and to tell a story, and that's exactly what modern creators are doing right now, especially with Hamilton. I think you can really, really make a connection between Hamilton and the Shakespeare plays. That is my tangent over, but basically there are so many amazing resources and film and stage resources that you can watch and you can enjoy to make that experience of reading the play that much more special, because these plays, like I said before, were meant to be seen. They were not meant to be read, but we want to read them to kind of have that experience and seeing the words in front of us. But what I love about stage performances is that the actors enunciate and dramatize and act out these certain dialogues that if we read them, sometimes we don't properly enunciate certain words or certain lines, or we don't speak them the way they're intended. In our heads, we don't do it. But when you watch an actor, then they know exactly how to convey that emotion, how to bring that scene to life. And so that's what I really, really love about doing that even before you read. So when you go into the dialogue, you can just enjoy and know, oh, that's when he said it this way, and that's the feeling that he was conveying, or she. So basically, you can do that before you read, so you get, again, an understanding of the story. Or while you read, you can sight read while you watch an adaptation, which I think is something that could be really fun to do. And then even after you read the play, then you can watch the adaptation and remember those dialogues and to bring the words that you just read to life by watching them and watching them be performed, because Shakespeare is just all about being seen, being performed, being dramatized and brought to life. Step number 2 is editions. Shakespeare books and Shakespeare plays come in so many editions, and I want to talk to you guys about the editions that I find the most helpful, the ones that I would recommend. But basically, what I love as a beginner is there are amazing resources that come with background textual information, a chronology, character lists, backgrounds on Shakespeare, backgrounds on the Globe Theatre, all these amazing resources that we can learn a little bit more, not just while reading the play, but to get a better understanding of Shakespearean history. The editions that I swear by on my first reading is the Folgers Shakespeare Library editions. This one is of Hamlet, but I have so many over here. I have these, and I even have more, but these are all of the ones that I have read from. You can see that the spines are quite cracked and well loved, and some of them are tabbed in, and let's just go through them. So this one I have is Hamlet, and then I have Taming of the Shrew, and then I have King Lear, Much Ado About Nothing, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and Romeo and Juliet. And what I love about the Folger Shakespeare libraries is that they come with so much information. So this is Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, on the front it says, with detailed notes from the world's leading center for Shakespearean study. And what is amazing about the Folger Shakespeare library is they give the reader so much extra information. You don't have to read it, you could just go in and read the play itself. But when I was first really discovering and falling in love with Shakespeare's writing, I was fascinated by all of this information. And let's see, it has an introduction to the text. It also has the publication of Shakespeare's plays, so different background on the publication. It has information about Shakespeare's theater. It has information about Shakespeare's life. I'm just going through to give you guys everything that it has. It says, it goes into detail about Shakespearean wordplay and reading Shakespeare's language, and the editor's preface, because it always comes with a preface. It gives you background on Romeo and Juliet itself. It gives you background on the play, whichever play you're reading from. It tells you about Shakespeare's sentences and his different use of language. And so these editions come with so much extra information, even on the back of the play. So what's funny is that by the time you get to the actual play, it's really not much to read if you think about it. So Act 1, Scene 1 is here, and then it ends. The actual play itself is that. But we have all of this wonderful extra information that you don't have to read. No one's making you read it, unless you're reading it for school, which this is a video for reading it for fun. So this isn't mainly a video for reading it academically because I'm not a professional, but this is basically just reading it for fun. So again, if you're reading it for fun, no one's making you read these specific different textual information, but then at the end it has longer notes and textual notes and a modern perspective on Romeo and Juliet. It also has further readings and a bunch of different stuff, so these editions are amazing. What I also love is that at the beginning of each scene we have a summary. On this page we have the actual text of the play, and on this page on the top, this paragraph is a summary of what exactly is going to happen in this scene. And then over here we also have, it has numbers next to it, so the numbers next to it mean the lines that it is defining a word from or a phrase from, and it basically just gives you these phrases that you might not understand the meaning of. It doesn't have everything, it's not a direct translation, but it gives you the ones that they think you might need the most help on, and it defines them for you. And so if you're reading this line and you think, let's see, line 5, it talks about a collar, and then the definition is the hangman's noose. So certain words that a collar, we think of a collar on a shirt, might have a different meaning when it is spoken of in Shakespeare. So that is what I love so much about these editions. Also, every page has, so like this is the line of the actual play, and then these are all the definitions. So the play is only really on one page of each spread. So this is a 2-page spread, and only one page has the actual text on it. Every left side of the book has the definitions. I hope this is making sense. And every right side just has the play. So again, textual notes, dialogue or play, textual notes, play, textual notes, play, again, on and on and on. So that's how these editions are set up. And then the other editions that I don't use but I know a lot of people really enjoy are the No Fear Shakespeares. They look like this, and these have, instead of just certain words defined and summaries on the left side of the page and the play on the right, they have the actual Shakespearean language, I think, on the left, and a direct modern translation into modern English on the right, so that you can get a direct modernized translation. I have not used those, so I am not an authority on how I like them. I can't really give you any input on how they are while reading, but I can just tell you guys that they exist, and I know that a lot of people do really, really love them. But for me, I would say maybe go with the Folgers library, just because I know that these are amazing. But again, I'm sure that the No Fear Shakespeares are incredible as well. And then if you're feeling bold enough, you can just go right into the play with no textual information and no background or summary or definitions. You can just read the play straight through without anything. And I am now, just now, starting to finally be able to just go into a play without anything else kind of guiding me. Recently, I just read Othello, and I went into it without seeing an adaptation or a stage performance, without any background information, without any textual notes, without any definitions, without any summaries, and I loved it. And I felt like that was such a moment for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, that was the first time that I went into a play without anything and just reading the play by itself, and I just felt so good about it because I understood it, I got the different innuendos, the different elements, and I adored it so much. So it's so gratifying when you put that fun, I think it's fun, when you put that fun work into going into a Shakespeare play and kind of giving yourself that background information, and then when you don't need it anymore and you could just enjoy the play itself, it's so gratifying. So yes, I'm going to talk about the other editions that they have. Some of these are not in print anymore that I found at a used bookshop, so you can either look at your used bookshops if you want these specific editions, or maybe you could check on Depop. I know I find a lot of used books on Depop, maybe even eBay or different local booksellers that sell used books. So the first editions that I have, they are the Yale Shakespeare, and these are printed from I'm pretty sure just like the Yale University Press. These I found at my local used bookstore, and okay, it says Yale Shakespeare, edited by Wilbur L. Cross and Tucker Brooke, published under the direction of the Department of English, Yale University, on the fund given to the Yale University Press in 1917 by the members of the Kingsley Trust Association, Scroll and Key Society of Yale College, to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the founding of the society. So these were published to honor the Scroll and Key Society. And this one is Comedy of Errors. And then on the bottom it says New Haven, Yale University Press, London, Geoffrey Cumberledge, Oxford University Press. So this edition is actually it's the second printing from April 1954, and these are just gorgeous editions. They have beautiful, I think those are woodcut illustrations, gorgeous illustrations, and then these are just the plays themselves. Yes, these don't have any textual information or any definitions. They do have some footnotes, but very, very minimal ones. But these are just absolutely beautiful, so I really love finding these and collecting them. The Shakespeare plays that I have are A Comedy of Errors, All's Well That Ends Well, As You Like It, and Titus Andronicus. I actually haven't read any of these four, so when I do, I will most likely read them from these editions. The next editions, you guys know I love to collect so much, and those are the Macmillan Collector's Library editions. These are published by Penn Macmillan. They have a bunch of classics published in these editions, not just Shakespeare's plays, but these I think have some textual information, but not too much. Yes, they have an introduction, they have a list of characters, and I'm pretty sure they don't come with a summary. They don't come with a summary, but they do have beautiful illustrations to go with them. They also have a ribbon bookmark. They are cloth bound under the dust jacket with gold foil edges, and let's see, they do have a glossary. You can flip back and forth, but I feel like glossaries are a bit harder to use when you're reading a Shakespeare play, just because then you have to keep flipping back and forth to the back. So these are beautiful if you want to get like a specific beautiful edition of the plays. Like for me, A Midsummer Night's Dream is my favorite Shakespeare play, and so I have the edition in the Folgers Shakespeare library, but because it's my favorite play, I wanted to get a beautiful edition of it. So I got this beautiful edition of the Macmillan Collector's Library, and that's what I really love doing, is once you have a really good text that you can kind of go and annotate and really write in and sort of mess up, fold the pages, bend the pages, highlight, underline, and then if you really love the play, you can get a beautiful edition. So that's these. I have A Midsummer Night's Dream, I also have Hamlet, my favorite tragedy, and I also have The Tempest, which I haven't read yet. This is one that I'm really excited to read. And also on the back of each of these editions, they have a quote. So the quote on the back of The Tempest is, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on." And then on the back of Hamlet, it says, "Something is rotten in the state of Denmark." And then the one on A Midsummer Night's Dream is, "The course of true love never did run smooth." And that is one of my favorite quotes from Midsummer Night's Dream. The next editions are actually the older versions of the Pan Macmillan Collector's Library. These are the ones that these used to look like. So they were originally published in this format, and then the updated and more modern ones are in this beautiful format. I really like the look of these. I found this one secondhand, and it actually has a cute little portrait of William Shakespeare on the back. Again, I'm pretty sure these have the same exact information. Yeah, glossary. Oh look, oh my gosh, an author portrait of William Shakespeare. You guys know how much I love author portraits. I actually did one of Shakespeare. I will put it right here. How about that? This one has an introduction, and then it has the actual play, and then a glossary, and then a bibliography. So that's the information that these come with. Again, they aren't printed anymore, but I'm sure you can find them around used bookstores, library sales, anything like that where you can get used books. The next editions are these gorgeous Penguin classics. These are the Pelican Shakespeares. I think these are published by Penguin, aren't they? Yeah, they're published by Penguin. There's a penguin right there. And I only have this one edition, and this is The Merchant of Venice. I found this at my local used bookstore, but these are still being printed today and sold today in bookshops, so you can find these really anywhere books are sold, I'm sure. And they are beautiful. They have gorgeous, more modern illustration style on the front. And let's see what these have. They have an introduction. They have texts on Shakespeare. They have the theatrical world, the questions of authorship, which is a very interesting subject in terms of who even wrote these plays. Did Shakespeare really write them? Oh, that's so cool. Okay, the front cover, there is Ellen Terry as Portia in the trial scene, Act 4, Scene 1, at the Lyceum Theatre, 1880. The Shylock was Henry Irving. Ooh, that's so cool, and it has a portrait of the actress that played Portia. That's amazing. Okay, so this has, the contents are publisher's notes, the theatrical world, the text of Shakespeare, an introduction, and notes on the text, and then the actual play. So these also have footnotes, but again, play on each page, and I don't believe they have summaries on each scene. Yeah, they don't have summaries, but they do have footnotes. So again, haven't read from this edition, but they are really beautiful, and I feel like whenever I see an edition that I like, I might pick it up and start collecting them. The next editions are the Oxford World Classics editions. This is the only one that I have, and it is quite creepy. Like, that is a seriously bloody face. And that is Coriolanus, and I have not read Coriolanus yet, but this is a play that I do really want to read. These editions, the Oxford World Classics editions, are renowned for being full of textual background and just extra information in general. These have, let's see, a new modern spelling text. Okay, a new modern spelling text, collated and edited from all existing printings, on-page commentary and notes explaining meaning, staging, allusions, and much else, detailed introduction considering composition, sources, performances, and changing critical attitudes to the play, includes extracts from the play's sources, illustrated with maps, production photographs, and related art, full index to introduction and commentary, and durable sewn binding for lasting use. Thank you very much for telling us about your very sturdy binding, because, you know, that's very important. So these have a ton of information. I haven't read a play from this edition yet, because this is actually the only play that I have in this edition, and I haven't read Coriolanus yet. So basically, this is all of the definitions, and then, let's see, the folio text. Okay, so this is part of the introduction. So the introduction goes into a lot of details into original staging and a bunch of different information that you don't really need to read if you just want to read the play. But the fact that it is there and it comes with it is great, and I'm sure very useful. I think it just gives you the definitions on the bottom, kind of like the footnotes. So again, these are really great if you want a lot of background, if you want a bit more just to kind of give yourself some extra information regarding Shakespeare's history and the different language and everything that I just spoke about that is in this book. So these are really, really great, I think, maybe for students or for beginners that want a bit more information on Shakespeare and not just the play. The last edition is out of print, but I actually just found this edition last week when I was at my local used bookstore, and this is the Signet Classics Shakespeare, and this is Troilus and Cressida. And I haven't read Troilus and Cressida yet, but this is very, very high on my Shakespeare TBR. They do have the modern Signet Classics editions of Shakespeare, which look like this. so you can kind of see the difference, and they just updated the formatting. Okay, so first they give you Shakespeare prefatory remarks, an introduction, and then the play, and then textual notes after the play, and then a note on the sources of Troilus and Cressida, and then commentaries. And so it gives you a bunch of different information as well. These also have footnotes on the bottom of the pages, and then on both pages it does have the play itself. And so I think these will be great to read with like minor background, but this doesn't have so much background like the Folgers or the Oxford Classics editions. But I think that these would be great too. I'm not sure what the modern Signet Classics or Signet Shakespeare Classics look like, the ones that I just showed you, but this edition is really, really beautiful, and I just love the formatting of it, so I was so excited to find this edition. I really quickly have to go and do something with my mom, but I will be right back in 2 seconds because I'm just going to keep filming when I get back. So I will see you very soon. Hello, I am back, and so now I'm going to be talking about my third tip, and that is to implement while you are reading. So the first tip is to just take your time while you're reading. I find that sometimes I try to rush through certain books just to get them over with, or just to read them and get them done. But with Shakespeare, I feel like because they are plays and they are relatively short, it's nice to just take your time and not really put too much pressure on yourself. Like I said before, these plays were meant to be seen and not read, so what I like to do, like I said before again, is to watch an adaptation before, or like I said, while you are reading. So if you want to just have the book out open in front of you and watch an adaptation while you read, then I feel like that is a great way to kind of take in the story while also reading and be super immersed in what's going on, and to kind of have that easy introduction of you're not physically reading the words because they are being spoken out in front of you, but to also have them in front of you so that you can see all the different details. Or what I love to do is to listen to an audiobook while you sight read. This is definitely my preferred method just because I find it kind of the middle ground between watching the adaptation or watching a stage performance and physically reading the text, when you can just hear the voices and the actors recount and speak and perform the dialogue through an audiobook, so that you are physically always looking at the words, but you are hearing them being acted out in your mind. And what's great is that the Folgers Shakespeare Library actually have full cast audiobooks, so they have a different voice for each character, so it makes it much more distinct and it makes it come to life when you're reading the actual play. Because of everything going on with the virus and the world right now, they actually did this wonderful thing where if you go to the Shakespeare Library, Folgers Shakespeare Library website, they do have free audiobooks for you to listen to. They don't have all the plays, but they have quite a lot of the popular ones, so I will link that down below. You can go to the Folgers website and I will just link where exactly the audiobooks can be found, because I think it really, really helps the reading experience when you can actually hear what the actors are saying. You can hear them enunciate, you can hear them perform, and they do have like music attached to it. They do have different sound effects, so whenever a person enters a scene or exits a scene, there are footsteps, sometimes dogs barking, sword fights, sword sounds. They just have everything, so it's kind of like if you put on the stage performance but didn't look at it, and you just listened to the stage performance and read while you did it. So you can of course put on an adaptation or put on a stage performance and not watch it, but audiobooks are great because you can just listen, and they are meant to be audiobooks, so they are kind of, I feel like the movie and stage performances are meant to be seen, not only listened to. So I feel like the audiobooks are a great middle ground of taking the story while you read and also not feeling like you have to take your eyes off of the page to also watch. So yes, I really, really love audiobooks. The Folgers are definitely my favorite audiobooks to listen to. And now tip number 4 is after you read. And again, this is going to be probably like my 5,000th time talking about this method or this tip, but to watch the adaptation. If you didn't watch before, if you didn't watch during, then watch after, because like I said before, these plays were meant to be seen and not read. How many times will I say that? Many, many times. But I feel like that's so important because as readers, I feel like we have this stigma that we have to read before we watch the adaptations, or the book is always better and blah, 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 blah. But with Shakespeare, I feel like that's kind of different, because if you want to watch before, then that's okay, because they are dramatized. They are dramas. They are meant to be seen and not read, as I keep saying. But yes, so I definitely recommend watching the adaptations sometime. I will give you a list of my favorite adaptations to watch. I will even include them in the description box, the title of the movie or the title of the play, with whatever year it came out in, just because there are many adaptations and I want you to know the exact one that I'm talking about. Another thing that I love doing after reading a Shakespeare play is going on YouTube and looking at different book discussions and different play discussions on whatever play I have read. Someone that I absolutely love her videos is Libby Stevenson. She is an amazing booktuber. She has a wonderful book club named the Bard Book Club, and I actually haven't participated in it, but I would love to in the future. And basically every month they pick a new play. I'm pretty sure it's a monthly, or maybe it's bi-monthly, but I'm pretty sure it's monthly. They pick a Shakespeare play, and then at the end of the month she has a discussion video where she uploads and talks in depth about the play and all of the nitty-gritty details that she knows, the background information. She's just so well-versed and well-read. She has read every single Shakespeare play, and I will link her channel down below. She's amazing. She's really, really funny, and I just absolutely love all of her videos regarding Shakespeare. So yes, definitely check her out, and also just research on YouTube different people discussing Shakespeare. And I think that when you hear other people talking about something, you can do this before you read this play too, but I just have it after you read it. But I think it's so interesting to get a different person's perspective, because it'll help you and make you think about the play, or maybe about different aspects of the play in a completely new way. And I just find that really, really exciting to hear somebody else's take on a play that maybe I have read, or maybe you haven't read it yet if you watch the videos before you read. But yes, definitely go on YouTube and just search up a bunch of different videos. And then another tip for after you read one of the plays is to keep reading them, because once you read one and then you read another and then you read another, they will become so much more approachable and so much more enjoyable. And I feel like it's getting over that hurdle of the first play or the second play or the third play, and kind of, I don't know, I'm not saying you would struggle with the plays, but I feel like the first few times it's a bit challenging, and once you get through that and you can just really, really enjoy them, it's kind of that concept of practice makes perfect. I feel like the more plays that I read, the more I enjoy them, the more that I love them, and it's also exciting to reread them or rewatch them or re-listen to them. I think it's so important to just keep consuming Shakespeare, because he is amazing on the first read, but he's even better on the second read. He's even better on the third read. When you already know the play, you already know maybe some minor details, and then you just get more and more and more from it. I feel like every time I reread a Shakespeare play, I find something else that I missed the first or second or third or fourth time, however many times I've read the play. And that's what's so amazing. It's kind of like watching any movie or reading any book. The first time you always understand the basic story, but then on that reread, when you know what's going to happen, you look at those little details and you notice things that you didn't notice the first time around. And I feel like that's such an exciting feeling to have while you read. Now my last tip is tip number 5, and that is the most important tip that I can give you, and that is to have fun while reading them. This is a video for a beginner's guide to reading Shakespeare for fun, and they are hilarious. They can be hilarious. Even the tragedies can be super, super funny. And again, I haven't read history yet, but I'm sure I'm gonna love them. I'm just a bit nervous about them, to be completely honest, which is why I'm a beginner. Anyway, so just have fun while reading them. If don't put pressure on yourself to understand them completely the first time you read them, or to understand all the little subtleties of William Shakespeare and his writing style. Just take in the story, don't put extra pressure on yourself, just have fun, make it something that is enjoyable and not a chore and not something that you're looking at analytically. I feel like as a beginner, the most important thing is to just enjoy the plays because they were meant to be enjoyed. They weren't meant to be studied in schools, like I said before. They weren't meant to be analyzed, and they weren't meant to be picked apart. And yes, maybe Shakespeare thought, I would love somebody to really think deeply about my plays and to really take in these subtleties because I'm putting them in there for a reason. So what I love is that you aren't obligated to go in depth with his plays, and you can just enjoy them, or you have that opportunity and you get really excited about his plays to really delve deep into them, find out those hidden meanings, find out those little details and those different uses of certain words. And he just has such an incredible thing that he's given us, his plays. For hundreds and hundreds of years, they've lasted so long because they are incredible. They hold so much. It's such few pages and it's such a short amount of time. It isn't a 1,000-page book. It is a play. It's supposed to be acted out and brought to life with other human beings. And yes, books and novels can be that way too, but I feel like plays are so special and so singular, and that aspect that they were meant to be performed, they were meant to be dramatized. And it's fun. Like, I always have to keep reminding myself when I think too deeply about a Shakespeare play, and I kind of put this pressure on myself as an academic to really think about them analytically. But in the end of the day, as long as you're enjoying what you read, that's the most important thing. So basically, just have fun. Okay, so now that all of my tips are over, I've given you all of the tips that I have, I'm going to talk about the plays that I have read. I'm not going to give you much detail about them, just because I'll leave that up to you if you want to read into them and read more about them. So now I'm going to show you guys the comedies that I have read and also my preferred adaptation of each one. So the first one is Taming of the Shrew. I first read this in high school in my senior year, so 12th grade English class. We actually did a performance of it for all the English classes, and I played Bianca, and it was just so much fun. I have so many fond memories attached to this play just from doing that in my English class, and I just absolutely loved it. My favorite film adaptation, I haven't seen a stage adaptation, but I've seen the film adaptation, and that is with the one where Elizabeth Taylor plays Catherine. So I will put the movie poster right here. This is my preferred movie adaptation for Taming of the Shrew. The next comedy is my favorite comedy, and I think that this is the one that you should start with if you want to start with any play. Start with A Midsummer Night's Dream. It is amazing, it is hilarious, it will make you laugh, it will make you fall in love with the characters. It has Greek mythology, a love square, it has fairies, and it has donkeys, and it has an play inside a play inception, and it is just amazing. There is so much going on. This play is so chaotic, and it really isn't very long at all. My favorite adaptation is the one with Callista Flockhart and Christian Bale and Dominic West. It is amazing. It is so funny. It also has Stanley Tucci, who plays Puck. And it has just an amazing cast of actors and cast of characters, and this is just such a great play to start with. I think the first play that I read for fun outside of high school and outside of university was Romeo and Juliet, and I will talk about that later. So I think as a tragedy to start with, Romeo and Juliet is great because it's so well known, and I'm sure everybody knows the story of Romeo and Juliet. If you want to start with a really, really funny play that will just make you laugh and fall in love, then A Midsummer Night's Dream is the way to go. And also, this is one of my favorite movies just on its own ever. I love it so much. It's hilarious, it's amazing, the acting's wonderful, and I just love A Midsummer Night's Dream so much. So definitely watch the movie, definitely read the book. If you want to read any play ever, if you only want to read one Shakespeare play, please make it A Midsummer Night's Dream. It is amazing. And the third comedy I have ever read is Much Ado About Nothing. The my favorite stage or film adaptation is the one with Emma Thompson, who plays Beatrice, and this is a really, really great comedy. It's not my favorite, but I really, really like it still. I have such high standards for Shakespeare that, like, yes, it's still like a 4 to 5 star, but compared to A Midsummer Night's Dream and Taming the Shrew, I don't love it as much. But yes, it's still amazing, it's still really, really funny, and I know that this is actually a lot of people's favorite plays, but I also really, really love the film adaptation, so definitely these two are really, really wonderful as well. So now I'm going to go into the tragedies. So the first tragedy is Romeo and Juliet, like I was just saying before. I would recommend the Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. That one is just amazing. Everybody loves it. It's fantastic. And the other adaptation is from 1968, and that is with Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting. It is amazing. It is beautiful, and it's definitely the Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes is more of a modern version, and the one with Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting is much more true to Shakespearean times, and it's just wonderful. I love this play so much. I know a lot of people find it frustrating and overdramatic and silly, but what I love about it is that it paved the road for so many future stories and the stories of star-crossed lovers and family feuds, and it just paved the road for so many future authors, and that's why I love it so much. Also, this play is full of so many beautiful and iconic and groundbreaking speeches and quotes and lines, and it's just so beautiful. The next tragedy is my favorite tragedy, and that is Hamlet. I love Hamlet so much. My preferred movie adaptation is with Mel Gibson, and I think it's so good. I haven't seen too many Hamlet adaptations. I think that might be the only one that I've seen, but I really, really loved it, and I think it was very true to the, again, Shakespearean time period. It isn't modernized. Glenn Close also plays his mother, I'm pretty sure, and she does an amazing job, and I just, this play, if you read any besides Romeo and Juliet, because I feel like that's Romeo and Juliet's great to start with tragedies, but Hamlet is incredible. It looks way longer, but again, like, this has a lot of textual notes, so the play itself really isn't this long, but it is one of the longer plays, but so worth it. There is so much going on in this play. It's amazing, it's fantastic, and it's Hamlet. Oh god, to be or not to be? That is the question. And the answer is to read this book, to be the person to read this book. It's amazing, and I love it, and definitely watch the adaptation if you're interested too, because it's fantastic. The next tragedy is King Lear, and I actually haven't seen any stage or movie adaptation of King Lear, and I know I need to so badly. The one that I am eyeing the most is with Laurence Olivier, and he is renowned as a Shakespeare actor, and I haven't seen any of his performances, and I feel like I just need to. It's kind of like a rite of passage as such a Shakespeare fan, and I can't wait to watch it. So yes, King Lear isn't my favorite tragedy. I went in recently, I read this, and I went in with really high expectations because I know it's so many people's favorites, but unfortunately I think I went in with too high expectations, and not that it's bad or that it wasn't wonderful. I loved it, but I just kind of expected a bit more from it. I feel like I didn't go in knowing the plot of the storyline, and then I read the Charles and Mary Lamb short story, and then I kind of was getting ready to be blown away by the play, and I just wasn't. But again, like, I have very high standards for Shakespeare, so yes, still a great play. Have to watch an adaptation of it, but honestly, on its own, I really do love it, just compared to the other ones, maybe not as much as the other tragedies. Very recently, I read Othello, and this is the Classics Club edition of all of Shakespeare's tragedies. I do have the whole set of Shakespeare's tragedies, comedies, and histories, and I also am borrowing this huge edition of all of Shakespeare's plays from my uncle. He studied Shakespeare in university, and so he gave me this huge bind-up of all of Shakespeare's plays, and I have read Macbeth from this edition. So let's talk about Othello first and then Macbeth, shall we? Okay, so here is the edition that I read Othello from. I don't have a Folgers edition, but I did just read it through this. So if you haven't seen my 24-hour Rory Gilmore readathon, which was my last video, I will link that down below. I had so much fun filming that, and that's probably one of my favorite videos I've ever filmed and uploaded. But I read Othello during that 24-hour readathon. I listened to it as an audiobook, the Folgers edition of the audiobook, and I read it through this actual edition. So I sight read while I listened, and it has become one of my favorite tragedies ever. I have not seen any adaptation of it, and I need to, because now that it's one of my favorites, I just am dying to watch an adaptation of Othello. I can't wait. I feel like there are so many amazing ones, and I can't wait to find the perfect one and to watch it and to adore it. I'm just so incredibly excited. So yes, Othello is a must read. It's amazing. Oh my gosh, I can just go on and on and on about it. Loved it so much. Now we are going to talk about Macbeth, which I read through this gigantic edition. The Macbeth adaptation that I love a lot is with Michael Fassbender. This, I think, is the only Macbeth edition, or Macbeth adaptation I've ever seen, but I loved it. It was amazing. He did a wonderful job performing as Macbeth, and it was just incredible. Also, he's just so handsome. Oh my gosh, so handsome. And so yes, Macbeth is incredible. I am a huge Scotland nerd. Like, I want to go to Scotland so bad. It is probably the place I want to go to most right now. If I could travel anywhere in the world at this moment, it would be to Scotland. And so having a Shakespeare play set in Scotland is just the most perfect thing that I could ask for. So yes, absolutely love Macbeth. It is amazing, and that adaptation is also really, really great. Definitely very gruesome and brutal and dark, and I feel like it accompanies Macbeth in a really, really beautiful way. So yes. And now to talk about the histories. I have not read any histories, so I have only read 8 plays. Only 8 plays. I have read Romeo and Juliet twice, and have I read any others twice? I feel like I did read Macbeth in school, so maybe Macbeth twice as well. But there are about 39 plays. I have only read 8 of them. That's why I'm like, how can I film a Shakespeare video when I'm not an authority to Shakespeare? But then again, as you can see, I'm a beginner too, so I feel like a beginner saying how they go into Shakespeare might be helpful as well. So I hope this has been helpful. And yes, I am going to shut up now because I feel like I'm talking for way too long. As I do in all of my videos are just excessively long, and it's because I never shut up. But I hope that this was really helpful. I kind of wanted to cover every base. If you have any suggestions for any fellow Shakespeare nerds, then comment down below any of your tips, maybe that I didn't mention, or something that you want to talk about in regards to reading Shakespeare. I would love to hear all of your own advice. Give me advice, because I'm always looking for encouragement, especially because I really want to read a history, and I'm just such a chicken when it comes to reading a Shakespeare history, but I'm going to do it. I promise I will do it. So yes, I feel like this was my way to force myself to talk about Shakespeare and to kind of give myself the encouragement that I need to read his histories. That's sort of what I did with my beginner's guide to reading classic literature, and that was my push to finally read Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and now Anna Karenina is my favorite classic on the planet. So hopefully this means that Shakespeare's Histories will be my favorite. Let's hope, let's hope. I do love history. I am a history nerd. Anyway, without me rambling on any longer, I hope this helped you in any way. I hope this gave you some encouragement to pick up Shakespeare, to think about reading Shakespeare in a fun way, and let me know if you love Shakespeare, what play you love the most, which plays you're most excited to read. Just talk to me about anything to do with Shakespeare, because I could talk about him all day long. He's amazing. So yes, I'm going to leave you guys here. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I hope you are reading some amazing books, and maybe in the future some amazing plays as well. So I will see you guys soon in another video. Happy reading!